Making Out is Hard to Do is the third episode of season 8 of Full House. This is directed by Zwick, and as always, there will be spoilers from now as I go through the episode and share some thoughts. I will start off by talking about the very cute introduction, and then I'll talk about, I think, Jesse's story and then Stephanie's. It starts off with Comet, Joey, Nicky, and Alex, and in my notes, I wrote Comet showing the boys a trick. No, Joey is showing the boys a trick, and then the boys trick Joey, and it's just a really lovely interaction between Joey, Nicky, and Alex. It's very sweet and a really adorable way to start things off. Then we have Jesse, and this actually features Barry Williams, and he is now actually Barry and the Rippers. Yes, the Rippers of Jesse and the Rippers fame. And they have this hit song that's doing really well. Apparently, according to IMDb, the song is actually from a band called The Family Pets. I'm not familiar with them, but if that means anything to you, then hopefully that's an interesting bit of information. And needless to say, Jesse's feeling pretty terrible, because obviously he was cast out of the Rippers, and now they're working with Barry Williams. They have this great song that even people in the family are singing along to and enjoying. So I think Jesse's feelings there made a lot of sense. And then we have this really wonderful creative scene where Jesse falls asleep and he has this nightmare. And on the TV, we see his family members saying all of these horrible things about him. And then it turns out, because he'd given up on music, because he obviously realized, well, he believes there's just no point to it anymore because it's all just fallen apart. In this nightmare, it's the aftermath of that, and he's now looking quite different. I think they did a good job with the design of his appearance, and he is now in a relationship with Kimmy Gibbler. The reveal of that was brilliant. The whole dream sequence, or nightmare sequence if you like, was very creative, very well executed, absolutely a lot of fun. I'm not a huge fan of dream sequences in anything, but certainly in sitcoms, I just find them to be a little bit dull. I don't like being taken out of the main narrative, but on this occasion, I thought it was brief, it was to the point, it was very effective. And when Jesse wakes up, he realizes that he needs music. He can't just cast it aside because look what will become of him. Now, I don't think that would be the actual outcome, but I think it's a really important message there that you shouldn't give up something you love just because you haven't received the success you think you deserve. And in my opinion, Jesse does deserve. And of course, he has had some success, but that's kind of backpedaled a little bit now. And the message is so beautiful that if you love it, that's what's important. And if it's such a huge part of you, don't let go of it. And that's exactly what we see with Jesse. And I'm really glad he came to that realization. And also that he needs to stop obsessing over the Rippers, because what's done is done. He can't change it. And their success won't make any difference to his life, whether they have success or not with Barry Williams and their new song. So some great messages there. And my favourite moment in the whole thing is when, shortly after the dream, in real life, Kimmy Gibbler comes into the room, and the way Jesse recoiled, John Stamos, was absolutely brilliant. It was so fun. And of course, nobody else knows why he's just recoiled. But then again, it is Kimmy Gibbler. So I really liked it. The main narrative, well, it is the main narrative, but I feel like actually there's quite a lot of weight, equal weight, between Jesse and Stephanie, but a little bit more on Stephanie. She has been invited to a party that Gia is having. Her mother's working late, so she's having some people over, and apparently a character called Bobby is interested in Stephanie. So Gia is inviting Bobby for Stephanie. And Stephanie asks Danny if she can go, and Danny has laryngitis. According to IMDb, Bob Saget actually had laryngitis, so I'm assuming they wrote it into the story, but he did actually speak normally at one point, so maybe he was getting over laryngitis, but they wanted to save his voice. I don't know. If anybody can confirm, please feel free to do so. But either way, Danny can't really give Stephanie this big lecture, so he kind of just has to say yes. And also Gia said there'd be adult supervision, which was very clearly a lie. Stephanie gets to the party, which I wouldn't have picked up on, but according to IMDb, Gia's flat is actually Steve's flat, the flat that Steve rented. And once you know that, it's easy to see. It's very clear to see that it is the same set. So I found that to be really interesting. And as I was about to say, when Stephanie gets there, she realizes that it's a make-out party, which is not what she thought it was going to be. And I have to say, Bobby, played by Kevin Connors, was generally respectful with Stephanie. They sat on the sofa together, the lights were out. He didn't really push her to do anything, and Stephanie realizes, I can't do this, I want to go home. So she does the right thing and calls DJ. But Danny answers. And because Danny's got laryngitis, he can't speak. So Stephanie just thinks that DJ has answered, and she just starts talking and talking and talking, which of course is really awkward because she's saying things she wouldn't want Danny to hear. And of course, Danny turns up at the house. And I think they handled this in a really brilliant way for two reasons. One, nobody started making fun of Stephanie for wanting to leave. They didn't make a big deal out of it, which I really liked. But I also liked the fact that they took away the awkwardness that Stephanie might have felt. And if they'd made it really embarrassing for her and made the blame fall on her shoulders for what happened next, it could dissuade somebody in her position in real life from doing the right thing. And this is because Danny turns up. Obviously, everybody realizes, oh, there's an adult here. The party's over. And they very easily could have turned on Stephanie and said, look what you've done. You've brought your father here. You have ruined it. You're never getting invited to this again, which Stephanie probably would have been happy about. But had that been the route they were taking, young viewers watching it might think, oh, well, I can't call my parents if I'm in a similar situation because the other kids might turn on me. And they didn't. In fact, they took it one step further. Not only did nobody blame her for this, but also Gia's mother ruined the party as well because she left work early and got there pretty much when Danny did. So yes, Danny broke up the party, but also so did Gia's mother. So Gia can't get mad at Stephanie. And I think that was a really sensible approach to take. We have some interesting moments between Danny and Claire, Gia's mother, played by Andrea Abbate. And Danny said something that I thought was really interesting because they're talking about how Claire thinks Stephanie is a good influence on Gia. And Danny says, when children seem the least lovable, it means they need the love the most. Which is really, really beautiful. Children all need love. I don't think he's saying that naughty children need more love, but it's the fact that they need to be shown that love more. They need to be made aware of that love more because in many cases they're acting out because they don't feel that love. They might feel abandoned, neglected, unloved, unwanted. Not every case, of course, but I thought it was a really important message that it was just a brief line, but it worked really well. And what I also love is that Danny, who is, as I said, was able to talk normally by the end of the episode because of some concoction Claire gave him, didn't really start complaining at Stephanie. He told her she did the right thing. And I thought that was also really important for two reasons. One, it acknowledges that she did the right thing and he was willing to see that. He wasn't just immediately jumping down her throat and getting annoyed at her, which I think was great for his character. But the other important thing is that, again, if Danny had started shouting at her and blaming her for this and saying you should have known better, again, younger viewers watching this might be deterred from calling for help if they're in a similar situation because nobody wants that to be the outcome. So I think they took all of the right approaches with this. I think Stephanie's part of the narrative was really, really well handled. Every aspect of it was brilliantly done. And of course, the story with Jessie has some really great messages in there as well. So all things considered, Making Out is Hard to Do is a really solid episode of Full House. Absolutely no complaints at all. Definitely one that I really thoroughly enjoyed and for which I have quite a lot of praise.